I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon speaking to you guys about careers in social work. It's a really great opportunity for me to come out and talk to people about what I do, and sort of you guys are young and kind of figuring out where you want to go in life. And I have to say that I've been working in my profession for 19 years. I love what I do. I couldn't imagine doing anything different. It's just a great fit for me. So maybe this afternoon you'll hear some things that make you think maybe it's a good fit for you too. So throughout the past 19 years, I have spent all of my time working in child and family services agencies. You had a little bit of a biography in terms of sort of where I'm from and what I'm all about. So yes, I did graduate with a BSW, Bachelor of Social Work degree in 1993, and I've enjoyed working in Winnipeg, in Vancouver, and I've held various positions. Currently now, I'm a supervisor with Winnipeg Child and Family Services, and I supervise a unit of 7 social workers and 2 service assistants, and my unit services the North End and Point Douglas areas of Winnipeg. So when I was invited to come speak here, they gave us kind of an outline in terms of what I guess people want to hear this afternoon. So I'm going to try and get through some of that stuff in terms of, what do we do every day? If you decide to become a social worker, what would you be doing every day? And because my experience is all child welfare based, it's going to be a lot of that, although I am going to talk a little bit later on about some of the other areas that you can work in as a social worker. There's lots of opportunities, lots of diversity in terms of what you could do. But in terms of a CFS worker, basically every day we are working with families and we are working to reduce the risk of harm to children in the care of their families. And in doing that, we provide counseling, mediating, we help families resolve conflict, we help families to address behavioral or developmental concerns they may have with their children. So we're in people's homes a lot. That's probably one of the largest portion of our time is spent actually in families' homes. We're meeting with families, extended families, children. We're always assessing how the families are functioning. We're working with families to develop a plan in terms of how we're going to address some of the things that might be a problem for them. We also spend a lot of time with other collaterals. So we're working with schools, public health nurses, probation officers, police officers, often lawyers, other types of law enforcement, mental health workers, often foster parents if kids are residing out of their family home. We really look at it as a team approach and a very multidisciplinary approach. So like we're working with justice, with health, and all of those areas that are relevant to the specific child. So if a child has a particular need or a health need, then we're often involved with that system as well. We also do investigations. If there's a concern that a child may have been hurt in a non-accidental way, then we're going to become involved in that situation and try to determine sort of what happened, how did that occur, and what can we do, what's our plan to make sure the child will be safe. In those situations, sometimes a family is functioning in such a way that a child cannot be safe in their family at that time. And in that case, then we would seek alternate care for the child. And we would work with the family then to address whatever the issues were that made an unsafe environment for the child. So we are always looking towards, work with the family and, how do we get the child back into the home where everyone can be safe and, continue to function as a family. So when a child is in care, then we are assuming a guardianship role for the child, and we're, along with the parent, making decisions for the child, whatever decisions need to be made for their care. We go to court on a fairly regular basis, whether it's in a guardianship hearing, or sometimes we're involved in matters that become criminal. So then we're sometimes involved in criminal proceedings if we have relevant information there. We often advocate on behalf of our clients with other systems. So other systems that are involved with families, again, whether it's health or financial issues that the family has. So we spend a lot of time interacting with other organizations. So we're often we're very little time in the office as a caseworker. When I was a caseworker, I felt like my office was my car. I had everything I needed in there, and I was often, just checking in at the office on my phone or whatever it was. So it's not a job where you're kind of sitting around all day. Like you're really not in the office all that much. There's lots of time out and about, schools, daycares, hospitals. You're just out and about. So if you're an active, kind of busy person and you don't like to be sitting at a desk all day, it's a really great job. However, there is paperwork, and we do have to keep up with that. We have to kind of write down everything that we do during the day. So we call them our contact notes. So every contact that we have related to a case, whether it's talking to a client or going to a meeting or whatever we're doing, we need to write that down. So that's kind of a heavy paperwork aspect of things. But no 2 days are ever the same. You could come in the morning and think you were going to be doing something else, and then your day could completely change within, one phone call could completely change your day. So you kind of have to be a bit of a go with the flow kind of person, and just pace yourself, and you're going to do the best you can, and you have to be able to set priorities within your work. And of course you have a supervisor who's there who can consult with you and help you, direct your day and what you're going to do. So again, I really want to emphasize that, we are constantly in contact with people. So if you're a people person, it's probably a good fit for you. We're constantly building relationships with families, clients, and other service providers. And we're working with kids a lot as well, trying to determine what's in their best interest, what do they see, what do they think should happen for them, particularly older kids who, really do have thoughts and feelings about what they want to see happen in their life. So in terms of my role now, what I'm doing now is I'm supervising the workers who are doing the caseloads. We have a budget for our unit, kind of an operating budget that we have to make sure we're not overspending, just sort of coordinating all the flow of all the cases in the unit. I'm also involved in hiring and that HR kind of role when we have vacancies in the organization. I work with all the staff in my unit towards developing kind of a career path for them or their professional development. What kind of skills do you want to work on and how are we going to get you there? So we go through that process as well. So when you become into the supervisor role, then there's less sort of direct contact with the families, and it's more about kind of managing the unit, managing the staff, etc. However, I still do get involved sort of in day-to-day case stuff, particularly when a client maybe have a concern about something that's happening at their file, then I'm usually the next level that they're going to call, and then I'll work with them and the worker and try and resolve that. So one of the other questions that we were asked to address was, why did I want to become a social worker? I wanted to become a social worker since I was, fairly young. I think probably about grade 9 or 10, I decided that this is what I want to do. I felt that it was going to be a good fit for me. I wanted something that would be interesting, exciting, challenging. I wanted to be able to use my own skills in terms of connecting with people. And I found that to be true, that it's the kind of work where, every day you're going to be very involved with people, very close details of sort of their life experiences. We talk to families, and usually when parents are struggling, there's a connection back to their own issues when they were younger. So it's really difficult areas sometimes to get into with folks around things that happened to them in their past, and trying to work with that. Maybe you've never really talked about this before. Maybe you've never thought of how, what happened to you is impacting now how you're a parent. So kind of going back, and it really is about building trust with someone, to be able to go back in there and look at parts of their self that are actually quite vulnerable. So it's really about trust and empathy for the family, and not judging anybody kind of on where they're at in their life. I find the work, it allows you to express yourself in terms of expressing compassion for someone else, sensitivity towards someone else, caring and nurturing towards children and families. And what we're really trying to do is help people empower themselves to become better parents and more effective parents. I'm still working in the field almost 20 years later because I feel very passionate about what I do. I feel that I really do make a difference every day in people's lives. And now I feel that I have experience that I can bring to people who are just coming into the field. We take students every year from the various social work programs in the city, and they get to do a placement with us, and we get an opportunity to really sort of show them how we do things and kind of get them oriented and trained. And I really do believe that, because I work with kids, or I'm in an organization that works with kids, I really think that I have an impact on the future. I think that in some way that I can make the world a better place, because I really think obviously kids are the future, and if we can get involved and intervene with struggling families when the kids are young, then I think we're going to make a difference. And I've seen it happen. And I've also maintained contact with a number of people that I've worked with for years and years and years. Kids who are 4 or 5 years old are now much older than that. They're in their early 20s, mid-20s, and I still maintain contact with a number of them, or they maintain contact with me. They'll call me when something happens in their life that's significant, and they remember where I am, or they track me down, or if sometimes they've gone off and done other things, and 5 or 6 years later, I'll get this call from someone, and I remember them, and they'll say, I tracked you down, I had to tell you this happened. It's incredible. So for me, that's the big reward. Or to have a kid say to me, you know what, you made my life better. You changed my life because of what you did. So it's a really great feeling that you know that you are making a difference for people. And that's what keeps me going every day. I love it. Like I said, I couldn't imagine doing anything different. In terms of the occupation over the next several years, there currently are employment opportunities, and we anticipate that that's going to increase. And a lot of that, it's probably happening in a lot of areas, but it's partly just demographics, that there's the baby boomer group of people that are kind of, as a demographic, they're moving through the system and they are starting to retire. So we do anticipate that there's going to be opportunities ongoing in social work and other fields too. In the past 5 to 10 years, our system has undergone a fairly significant change in Winnipeg, and that has increased the diversity of agencies that are providing child protection services to families in Winnipeg. In 2005, there was something called the AJI CWI, which was the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry Child Welfare Initiative. It's a mouthful. And what happened at that time is that the agencies kind of diversified, and now within Winnipeg there are about 17 agencies providing services to families, and a number of them are Aboriginal agencies. So now Aboriginal families can choose where they want to receive service. So we think that's an improvement to our service. We think it's more culturally sensitive. And also within Winnipeg Child and Family Services, in the last roughly 5 or maybe even less than 5 years, we've developed our own, what we call our newcomer unit. And that unit is servicing families who are newer to Canada, often immigrant or refugee families, and so we're trying to specialize in meeting the needs of those particular families, which is also a really interesting experience in terms of building relationships with some of the groups within Winnipeg that are providing services to those families. In terms of other related professions or other jobs that you can get as a social worker, social workers work there's a big list of them, in probation. So you can become a probation officer, you can work in the justice system, in victim services, there's hospital social work, and within there's lots of different areas. There's mental health, there's women's health, there's children's, there's geriatrics. I mean, there's lots and lots of hospital social work. There's school social work. Then in the actual mental health system, so kind of that is administered by the province, there's mental health workers, community mental health workers. The income assistance system employs a large number of social workers as well. Then there's work with mentally challenged people, like organizations such as Saint Amant. There's addictions, employment. Social workers often work in the area of employment counseling, family conciliation, which is through justice, immigrant services, and then there's a number of social workers who provide private therapy services to families and individuals. So there's a real range of sort of what you can do out there, and then of course there's the child welfare aspect of things where I've spent the last number of years. So in terms of what you need to get the job, I know with Winnipeg Child and Family Services, we are in province, where we are under the province, the Department of Family Services and Consumer Affairs. And for us, what we're looking for is someone with a BSW, a Bachelor of Social Work degree, and 2 years related experience. You also need to have a car and a license. We do, obviously, we would consider other combinations of education and experience, but that's kind of what we're looking for. Everyone who wants to work with us has to do a criminal name check, a child abuse registry check, and a prior contact check. And that's just to determine, suitability to work with young children who are considered vulnerable. So in terms of the degree itself, the University of Manitoba offers a social work degree. And I know Booth College now has one. And then there's also, I think it's called now the Inner City Social Work Program on Selkirk Avenue. And then there's, I know that various programs often offer a 2-year concentrated program. So it's a 3-year degree, but there is a 2-year concentrated where it's just compacted. You work a lot harder, but you finish sooner. And then in terms of training and volunteering, I mentioned earlier that the BSW program, as part of the education, there's field placements involved. If you do the 3-year program, there's 2 field placements. If you do the concentrated program, there's 1, but it's a longer placement with more hours. And in that situation, basically what it is you are placed in a social service agency, and you have an opportunity to practice along with the social workers who work there. So you're working under the supervision of, usually you're connected to one person who's called your field instructor, and they kind of meet with you on a regular basis. They kind of supervise you as you're, learning the work. And that way you get sort of hands-on training and you get exposure to someone who's doing the work. Also, it's encouraged if you're thinking about becoming a social worker or applying to the program, it's a good idea to do some volunteer work in a social service agency, which can sort of help you learn about social work and the people that you might work with, and find out whether or not you think it's a good fit for you, because maybe it's not. So it's a good way to kind of explore that. And it's certainly something that's nice to be able to put on your application if you do decide to apply to go to social work, to the Faculty of Social Work. In terms of skills and abilities or personal qualities that we're looking for, we're looking for exceptional interpersonal communication skills. We're looking for someone who can be calm and level-headed, able to remain calm in a situation that could become, people could get upset. So just being able to be really calm and low-key about that. Crisis intervention skills. You have to be able to use authority at times. It's really helpful to have a knowledge of child development, particularly in child welfare. You have to be able to work collaboratively with other service providers. We need exceptional written communication skills because we are very paperwork heavy. There's a lot of paperwork, there's reports, there's court reports, there's all kinds of stuff. So that's really important. We're looking for people who have empathy and compassion for others. We're looking for people who can be a team player. I have a great team of people. We have a lot of fun together. We work really hard together. And if one worker has a crisis on their case, everyone's willing to help. And that's just really, really critical. So I've always been very lucky in almost 20 years of my work. I've always somehow found myself to be on great teams. So you have to be a team player. You need to be able to work under pressure. There's deadlines, there's setting priorities, there's, several things could come up in one day and you have to figure out what you're going to try and manage. We need to be able to complete assessments of families. You need to be able to, you have to have good reading skills, analyzing large volumes of written material. as part of our information gathering, so reviewing reports and old file histories that can sometimes date back, more than 20 years, and kind of going through it all and just putting it all together and figuring out, what's happening here with this family. Once you're working in child welfare, you need to have a sound knowledge of the Child and Family Services Act, the Adoption Act, the Authorities Act. All of those acts are available online at the Province of Manitoba website. If anyone's interested in checking that out, you can go there. In terms of working conditions, it's a very casual kind of atmosphere. Professional, however, can't wear cut-off sweats or anything like that, but it's very relaxed and people wear jeans and whatever, except for court. Then we need to be dressed properly for court. In terms of the hours of work, it really depends what kind of area you get into. What I'm doing right now is pretty much an 8:30 to 4:30. The odd time I've worked later, or come in earlier, or did something on a weekend, or whatever. So it does happen. But some work is specifically geared to work, after hours. We have an after-hours service that basically covers the time when we're not there. So, all night and, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, all that. Hospital social work, I think, is very shift work, all that kind of stuff. So it just depends what area you're interested in getting into. In terms of travel, there certainly is travel from where we are in Winnipeg. We're rural quite often. You go to Steinbach or St. Anne or that kind of thing. So day trip sort of stuff. But I have also, I was subpoenaed once to go testify in Vancouver when I lived here, so that was kind of nice. And I've also had the opportunity to go to different reserve communities up north. I've done that a number of times, and I've really enjoyed that experience as well. So, there is some travel, but it's not a regular part of your day or your job. It just comes up because you have a case, and all of a sudden something comes up and you need to take a child somewhere or something like that. So that can happen. With the province of Manitoba, we have a nice benefits plan, health plan, pension plan, all that kind of stuff. You're probably not thinking about pensions now, but it's good to have something like that. In terms of salary, because that was one of the things that I guess people wanted to hear about, right now, for someone who would be coming in with a degree and nothing else, like no experience or anything like that, you'd be starting off around $46,000. If you're coming in with the degree and a couple years experience, then you're starting off at about $50,000. And then there's a number of steps you kind of go through to get to the top of the scale, and I believe there's 7 or 8 of them. So 7 or 8 years in, as a caseworker, the salary goes up to about $70,000. And then for supervisors at the top of the scale, so again, 7 or 8 years into that, it's at about $75,000. So that gives you kind of an idea about the range of what you would earn. And these are all for agencies that are with the province of Manitoba. There's a number of private agencies that operate around, and I'm not really sure about some of their salary scales. I'm not sure. They'd probably be kind of similar, I would think. In terms of my advice to someone who's thinking about becoming a social worker, it's a great career. It's exciting. It's been incredibly challenging and very rewarding. I'll say it again, I can't imagine doing anything else with my life. I feel that I really have made a difference. There aren't that many jobs where you can actually do that, to change someone's life and make their life better. It's just an amazing experience to me, like it really is. And just the relationships that I've maintained with people over years and years and years, it's just incredible to me. It's challenging work, again, it's rewarding work. If it's something you're thinking about, it's something worth considering. I would say if you're good in sort of the ELA stuff, the reading and the writing and all that kind of stuff, that's probably, maybe something that you would think about. That's a real skill area that's really, really needed. Good written skills and, good reading skills, all that kind of stuff. So.